Hi, everybody. Uh, I'm Bill McCarran. I'm the Executive Director of Voices Unbound. I'd like to welcome all of you today to this webinar where we're talking with members of Austin Tice's family in the run-up to World Press Freedom Day. Now, his siblings who are with us today, Naomi Tice, who's coming to us from Houston, Abby Edburn, who's coming to us from Houston, and Jacob Tice, who's joining us from Tacoma, Washington. They haven't seen Austin like any of the rest of us in about 14 years, but their contact with him and their love of him is a different different quality than any of the rest of us. They feel strongly that they're missing him every day, as does their mom. And I'll just say this about Deborah. She would have been on here today. She's not feeling great, but she'll be back in the mix soon. And she sends the best to everyone. And she still 100% job one is bring her son home. Just a small background. Austin was taken in 2012 when he was on a reporting trip in Syria. He was a freelancer working for McClatchy, the Washington Post, AFP, CBS, and others. He used his background in his military training as a way to keep himself safe and moving through Syria, and he uncovered stories that many people were not able to get because of his understanding of the terrain. And he won a Polk Award for his reporting. Unfortunately, he was taken hostage by the Syrian government in August of 2012. And because the U.S. government shared with the Tice family a tremendous amount of information that they had about Austin and his whereabouts and his well-being from monitoring. We do work on the assumption that Austin is alive and recoverable. We don't know exactly where he is after the fall of Damascus, but we today are going to speak about three strong areas of inquiry, diplomatic areas where we think the U.S. government can do more to press other countries who hold the keys to helping us uncover more about Austin and facilitate his return. So I wanted to first call on Naomi Tice. Naomi, how are you?
Good. It's a great opportunity to be able to talk a little bit today to people. I think, we always want to make sure that Austin is staying top of mind. As you mentioned previously, he's always top of mind for us. Like you mentioned, our mom is not feeling well. A lot of that has to do with the ongoing stress of Austin's detention. And so, having the opportunity to make sure that we're highlighting what can be done for Austin right now is one that we really appreciate. So thank you so much, Bill and Voices Unbound, for kind of coordinating this space for us to give some updates and, make some direct asks to the media.
Thanks. Now, ongoing, we all know and observe that there's quite a bit going on between the U.S., Israel, and Iran, and there's some news stories and ongoing talks, peace talks, we hope, with Iran. And Naomi, you and I were talking about that. And what did you want to share with us some of your thoughts about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a story that all of us has been following very closely for a variety of reasons, right? We're seeing that the war with Iran is impacting people in such a variety of ways. I know for us and for our family, it feels very personal. We do, like you mentioned, we don't know exactly where Austin is or where he might have moved after the Syrian government change. But one of the ideas is that he could potentially be in Iran. And, there's a lot of good reasoning for thinking that way. And so I think with us having active military engagement, and we know that there's been bombings and different casualties, especially in areas where he could potentially be held. It definitely helps us follow that story for a kind of a more personal reason than just U.S. aggression.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of conflict, of course, over the years between the U.S. and Iran, but there's been a history of potential negotiations with hostage negotiations on the side. Um, can you talk a little bit about what you've been noticing, what's going on, and what your hopes are there?
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is definitely one of those areas of hope for us. We do know that Iran does have a tendency to take hostages, to use them as bargaining chips with the U.S. government, that they have done that repeatedly throughout the years. And we are asking the press basically to put Austin at top of mind for our U.S. negotiators. We know that while you mentioned the talks haven't been successful so far, but they are ongoing. We are actively engaging with Iran in a way that we have not in years. And this is a great opportunity to ask Iran to release Austin as a part of these negotiations, as a part of these conversations, to share more information that they may have about his whereabouts.
Yeah, the negotiations saw the highest level of contact between the U.S. government and Iran since the first Iran hostage crisis in '79. So it was encouraging. The vice president played a role, and as you said, not yet successful, but at a very high level, we are involved in this. You and I were discussing this, the participants in this. Did you want to share a couple thoughts there?
Yeah, so we do know that Mike Waltz has been recently re-engaged in that process. He has a history of advocating for Austin, for speaking out about working to get Austin released. And so, in his role as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and now his role in the Iranian negotiations, we're really hoping that we can, speak to him and that he will directly involve Austin in some of those conversations, involve questions and conversations around his release or information. So really seeing Mike being involved in those conversations is once again something that is hopeful for us. And then also thinking about, Joe Kent and the fact that he, resigned in opposition to the war, but also knowing that he has worked with our family previously to have some information declassified about Austin. I know you did a phenomenal job pulling together last August with the press club that where we kind of shared some of the information that we learned that way. And so, Joe's no longer in the government, and we are asking him to kind of maybe speak a little bit more about why he thought that declassifying that information was important. If there's any other information that he can share at this point. So I think just some of those changes and those officials and their relations kind of gives us avenues to learn more about where Austin might be.
Exactly. That would be really powerful if the press would reach out to Joe about the Austin Tice case, or if he would come forward. We welcome his participation. Hey, just for people who haven't maybe really followed this as closely as you guys, can you just briefly walk through why it's not a crazy idea that Austin, who we've been saying all along, Austin's in Syria, and he was, why does it seem like a pretty likely path that he might have either gone into Iran or an area of Iranian influence?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different reasons for that. So one, we do know that Assad, consistently said that he did not have Austin, right? And he has really held strong on that message. And so we also know that Iran manages some of the detention facilities in Syria. And so, that technicality could be one of the reasons why Assad said that he didn't have him, because Iran was technically in control of him at the time. And then with the regime change, we do think at that point, Austin might have been brought over to Iran during that time. Once again, this isn't confirmed, but we have strong reason to believe that might be the case. And so once again, that would be a reason why Iran at least probably knows significantly more about his location, if not are actively holding him now.
Yeah, that's right. It would be one of the natural progressions, right? And not a huge difference because probably he's been under IRGC control, even though physically may have been in Syria for many of these years. Naomi, thank you so much for your help with this and for your passion for your brother and for his release.
Yeah, thank you so
we,
much,
may,
Bill.
we may circle back in the question time, but I wanted to ask Abby if she would share with us some of her thoughts. Abby, you and I have been talking about another country that we think is important for the government to look at and develop a diplomatic strategy and take action. Can you walk us through some of that?
Yes. So talking about Russia, right now we know that Assad is in Russia. So basically what we're asking our government is to help us speak with Assad. We also believe that Russia may have a lot of useful information about Austin on its own because Russia, has its hands in a lot of different things. They know a bunch of different information. So we do believe that Russia on its own could have information about Austin. So that's what we would like the US government to speak with them about. And then also to give us access to speak with Assad, who is known to be in Moscow right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex three-cushion shot, as they say. We're asking Russia at a time of war, essentially, through diplomatic channels, to facilitate a meeting with Assad, for purposes of finding out about Austin. So that is a big ask, but we were talking about this, and it seems like even though it's a lot, the timing might actually be pretty good in terms of Assad's receptivity to the discussion. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so the reason we think that the timing could be good is because, Assad is no longer in Syrian power. So we believe that right now he could be looking to earn some goodwill and to kind of help his reputation as best that he can right now. He has no downside to sharing this information, basically. And it could really help him gain some goodwill. So we have reason to believe that if we could gain access to him, then he would be willing to share some information that could be really helpful to us.
Right. And he was this subject of some news stories that I think were since discredited, but that really pointed to him as having been involved in the, execution of Austin and things like that, which reports are that he really did not appreciate that kind of stuff. It's not true, but also that it laid a lot at his feet when he was not in regular position to do interviewing and that sort of stuff, because he's in this sort of he's not in prison, but he's contained a bit in Russia. So we think that there's plenty of room to criticize Assad, but we think this is an area that he would maybe appreciate a chance to clean up. And we are happy to help him do that, but also to point us in whatever way he might to where Austin might be. So Abby, did you have anything more you wanted to talk about in this case?
The only thing I would like to add, you're exactly right. He is in a very unique position right now where this could really help him out. It could be a really good, helpful thing for him to do. We also know that there have been attempts on his life right now in Russia. So this is why we're urging the government to act now. You know, the timer's on kind of thing. We want the government to reach out. We want them to do it now. We also know that, speaking about Russia, in the 2024 annual news conference that Putin does, he was asked directly if he would ask Assad about Austin, and then that was never followed up on. Couldn't be easier than now while Assad is in Russia. So we would like that to be followed up on. But yeah, we do feel like this is just very unique timing, and we need to really jump in there and take advantage of it. And we're asking for those communication channels to be opened.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, we're not sure that anyone has pressed him on this issue since he left Syria. So you're quite right. Putin was asked about it in 24, said he hadn't had a chance to talk to him about that, but that he would. And then no follow-up on the behalf of the U.S. press in 25. And I guess I get that because there's so many interesting questions that need to be asked related to the war. But hey, the Russians need to ask him about this, and the U.S. should press to ask him about this. And I do think he'd be, and the family, I think your family would like to be part of any kind of interrogatory with Assad on this subject, so they don't have to receive.
Absolutely. My mom is ready and willing to go. Anyone in our family, we're always willing to do whatever we need to do. So that's definitely not something that would hold this back at all.
So that's a strong ask and a very important channel that we can press on, where we believe there's direct information, good timing. Yeah, it's hard to do, but it's possible to do. And so we're really calling on the government, to act in that way and help us with this important strategy that Abby's laid out here. So Iran, Russia, and thank you so much, Abby. I think we're going to move on to Jacob Tice now. Jacob, you and I were talking about how another country could be quite helpful. And do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, so one of the major powers in this region is Israel. And to our knowledge, at least so far, the United States has not engaged as deeply with Israel on the question of Austin's detention as they could. And we believe that Israel itself has a tremendous depth of knowledge about Austin's detention, and indeed about the situation in Syria and its other neighbors, much more so than they have been willing to divulge or discuss so far. We also know that there is an equivalent office in Israel to the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, or our SPIHA office, which, it's worth noting, our family and mom in particular was instrumental in assembling here in the US. And so we would like, one of our asks for the Israeli government is that their equivalent to our SPIHA office engage with us, and that we engage with them in the spirit of the historic cooperation that the US and Israeli governments have, in order to discuss frankly and openly the information that Israel possesses about Austin's detention and perhaps even his current whereabouts. I think it's also worth noting simultaneously, there was a story in the New York Times, this would have been November of last year, about Brigadier General Khalid al-Halabi, who was a major military figure in the Syrian government, who was eventually revealed to be a Mossad double agent who was operating in the region, specifically in Raqqa, during the time of Austin's detention and immediately thereafter. He has been detained in Vienna for some period of time now. And we would like the FBI to reach out to him specifically and see what information he might have about Austin's detention, about his whereabouts, to the extent that he has any knowledge of them. We simply don't know what he might know because that outreach has not taken place. And we believe there's reason to suspect that he knows something or is able to point us in the direction of something. And I think that's an important thing to note as well. All three of these avenues can be pursued simultaneously. None of this is an either or proposition. Frankly, we would like all of these lines of inquiry to be pursued with equal enthusiasm and with equal zeal, because when you're conducting an investigation like this, and you're searching for a missing person, it is important to cast as wide a net and as broad a net as you have the resources to do. And with the resources of the United States government and the tremendous influence that it has in the world, we believe that all three of these avenues could be pursued simultaneously.
Yeah, no, your mom has had some direct communication with the Israeli government from time to time. She got responses. I mean, she wrote a letter to Netanyahu when there was bombing in Syria, and she thought, and with some high likelihood, that some of the activity was happening right around prisons where Austin might have been kept. And, she just wrote a letter asking for relief on bombing in those areas. They were then closed prisons. I mean, they were open or closed. They were no longer functioning as prisons, but they were places that researchers wanted to go to look. They couldn't go there because of the ordinance. So, Netanyahu responded, yes. And that was not done intergovernmentally. It was done from the family directly to the government of Israel. So I do think it's possible this can be pressed, that it can reveal things. Certainly, like to connect the dots on what you were saying about the Brigadier General being held in Vienna, he knew what was known at the highest levels of the Syrian government. And therefore, Israel knew the same thing because he was their agent. And
yes, that's a reasonable conclusion to draw. And there is nothing preventing the United States from engaging in discussions with the Austrian government, with officials there, to facilitate an interview between the FBI and Al-Halabi. There's simply no reason not to ask that question and pursue that interview.
Exactly. And to be clear, he's not being held for being a Mossad agent. He's being held because of potential war crimes when he was acting as a Syrian high-level administrative person. So, and I'm not here to explain for Israel their actions, but I do understand why they might not have rushed to tell the United States all this information they might have received from Halabi related to Austin, because to do so would reveal potentially reveal their double agent. Now, that's no longer an issue, right? That's
right. Yeah, I mean, it is, per that excellent article in the New York Times, it is now well known that was the case. And so there's very little to be lost on the Israeli side from allowing that interview to take place. And frankly, there has been such a sea change in Syria since the fall of Assad, since he fled the country, that we believe there's an opportunity to discuss much more broadly what Israel might have known about the regime and its actions during that period of time as they relate to Austin, including where he might have been and where he might be now.
Right. We believe the U.S. knew a lot of that. We think Israel knows more. As I think Abby said, Russia may know more. We think Iran knows a lot. They're not going to give it up to us. But there's a lot of information out here that is not being shared back to the family. And the U.S. Can do more in all of these areas to bring that information forward. You need to be wanting to act on that information, I think, to be the impetus to get all these channels moving, right? And I'll add another one we haven't really discussed today, and that is we have yet to open an embassy in Syria. And why is that important? We're not saying Austin necessarily is in Syria anymore, but Syrians know a lot about Austin, and the British have an embassy, the French have an embassy open, the Germans, everyone's got their teams on the ground, and we're not opening an embassy. And we're saying that it's because we're worried about the threats there, but none of these European nations have received threats or attacks in the new situation. There's always a risk of an embassy, but I do think we're really we're not forwarding many important diplomatic initiatives, but we're definitely not helping Austin's case by having almost no on-the-ground team in Syria other than the small military which stay in their regions. So that's something that's really got to change. And the U.S. government can, in these three areas that you've highlighted, but also just generally in terms of reestablishing relations with Syria, there is so much more that they can do than they have done. And when your mom was last with us, which was December 9th, we touched on some of these things. And I'm a little disappointed to say that you guys might feel differently, but I don't feel like much progress has been made in any of these diplomatic areas since then. So, the task before us, you guys have laid out pretty well. There's a lot of things that can be done, and we don't seem to be doing them. And
yeah, and Bill, I think that's why it's so helpful to have these kinds of opportunities as just to highlight. I think, as family members, we hear so much about, what's the updates, what's happening next. And as much as we and you and others have relentlessly pushed for Austin's case, we need those who support us and those in the media to continue to do the same and to really recognize these as opportunities to continue to push and highlight Austin. And I think right now is just another time where, like you said, we are disappointed. And I think we're disappointed that we're not seeing him naturally come up. Like you said, a lot of this really makes sense that that Iran would be knowledgeable about where he is. So why are we not seeing that in the news now? Why are we not getting that kind of ask of our government? And so that really is the request: is please continue to press for Austin.
Yeah. In Austin's case and in cases in the past, the role of the president is super important. Not that the president is going to be looking around himself, but he sends a signal to his government that it is time to act. And so I went back and looked at the last time that President Trump has mentioned Austin's name, and it was about 11 months ago, so almost a year ago. And when asked about him, this was in relation to a trip the president had taken to Saudi Arabia, where he for the first time met President al-Shara, the new leader of Syria. And interestingly, Deborah Tice met President al-Shara before Donald Trump did. But he said, "I'm always talking about Austin. That was the first thing he said. And then he said, we haven't seen Austin for a long time. He's got a great mom and a great family, but we haven't seen him for a very long time. That has been a consistent message for President Trump in his second term. And I don't know that it's helpful, because in a way it's saying we haven't heard from him for a long time. It's not seeming to press the people that work for him toward action, right? And we see these 3 or 4 distinct things that we've just laid out, areas, paths where there could be action. And I think we need the president to lead on this. And I'm not doubting that he thinks Deborah Tice is great. Anyone who's met her knows that's the case, and that he feels warmly toward this. And I'm not doubting that he does talk about Austin, but he might do it quietly and in just small conversations. I think we need his leadership here, and we need him to petition the people that work for him to prioritize this, and they can do more than one thing at a time. So
yeah, and I think to that point, it has always, in both his first term and his second term, the return of Americans to their home has been an important priority, a personal priority of the president. And I don't think that that's changed. And I think what we have laid out here is much more than like a kind of vague appeal for action. What we have laid out here are several concrete, easy to take steps in multiple areas of inquiry that could be acted on swiftly and with ease. There is nothing preventing these conversations. These are not particularly diplomatically complex asks, with the possible exception of the Iranian conversation. But again, you cannot know until you open that discussion. So if we assume that that discussion will go nowhere and refuse to ask, we are doing a disservice to Austin, to our family, and frankly, to our diplomatic efforts at large. Like, these are questions that can be asked. These are concrete actions that can be taken. And again, we appeal very, very broadly that they be done, and that they be done in short order and with boldness.
Yeah, I agree. And some of these are not high cost items. I mean, they take time, but it's sending an inquiry to Russia to help facilitate a meeting with Assad. That's a letter, right? And so we did have. In a minute, we're going to go to some questions, but we did have a question early on from a member of the Catholic press, asking us to talk a little bit about the Vatican's role in helping obtain Austin. And I will just say that the Vatican has been super helpful. Deborah has met twice with popes and is including the current pope. And there's been general receptivity. The Catholic Church, people may not realize there has been a cardinal in Damascus for quite some time. Deborah was pretty close to that cardinal. Vatican does have in addition to its religious duties, it does have diplomatic duties, and certainly I'll say is that they've been helpful. I don't think I should say anything more, but I would say their help is current as of right now, so that there's continued dialogue there, receptivity, action. And I think the family is super grateful for that. Did you guys want to say anything more about that?
And of course, we're grateful for the advocacy of the Vatican. That's been important throughout this ongoing tragedy that we the family are experiencing. Their compassion and their advocacy on Austin's behalf is something we're deeply grateful for.
Yep. I will mention, and this isn't a like bilateral thing with another country, but I did want to mention this, that it's pretty odd that Deborah has not had a face-to-face meeting with Secretary Rubio, and I want to stress that I'm aware he's got a lot going on. He has a lot of jobs. He's the head of the NSC in addition to being the Secretary of State, and it's not a quiet time on that beat, and we understand that. But I do think something should be scheduled. I do think it's important that our leading diplomat has a face-to-face meeting with the family of the longest held journalist, U.S. journalist, and I'm sure he wants to do that. I count it as another of these things that should be pretty easy to accomplish, and I think will help resonate within the government. With the secretary meets with Deborah, and they have a good exchange and develop a good and strong relationship. So I look forward to that happening this year as well. And if he's listening, I know there's a couple of people from the State Department on. We very much want to meet with Secretary Rubio, have communicated that directly through SPIHA, which is, sort of part of the State Department, which is the appropriate channel. And we're awaiting an outcome. We really think that's important. I think I'm happy to take questions if there's people. I know there's people on here that want to ask a question. The way to do that is if you can put it in the chat, we'll see it and we can ask it. Well, I'm looking, but I'm not seeing questions. But I want to say to the people who have joined us that I really appreciate you coming to hear the array of what I would call new things and undone things that remain before us, even though the case is 14 years on. And I would say, I think I speak for the family here too, that President Trump will be attending his first White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend. He's been the president many years, but he's been not going to this event. He's going to this event, and I think it's would be a great time for him to mention Austin's name and to reassure the ballroom full of press that are there that he's redoubling his commitment to work through these kinds of channels and find out about Austin and help bring him home. That's what I would love to hear. So what I'll do is just swing through, and for Naomi, for Abby, for Jacob, personally grateful to all of you for everything that you do. You've kept the light on for Austin, and we need you, and we need your energy and your ideas, and we appreciate you. And for all of you who have joined us, you now know how to reach us. I'm at Voices Unbound, and you can find me there. And I can help connect you if you're looking to interview these, the Tice Sibs or others in the Tice sphere. Let's talk, because I think we need more and more people to engage with these messages and to understand what needs to be done and the opportunity before us. We are so happy that some journalists recently are coming home, Americans. Shelley Kittleston, who was released, and I think is going to be maybe in Washington this weekend. And we had another American who was held for 5 or 6 months, American journalist held 5 or 6 months in Kuwait, was today released. So there's hope. Things are happening. It can't be tolerated that journalists can be held.
No, Bill, and I think from our family, it means it. We are so happy to see those kinds of reunions. I mean, it is truly impossible to communicate what it means to have a loved one held hostage, and so to know that they are being brought back to their families, it is such a beautiful thing, and we know that that is going to happen to Austin. This idea of us keeping the lights on, it. I mean, that it's not, there's no other option. Like, he is coming home. He is coming home soon. And I think that there is this request in the chat to kind of understand what can friends and family do now, as far as kind of how can we be working together to bring Austin home. And I think it really is just this continuous advocacy to either your local news agencies, as well as to your representatives. But I think it's this combination of keeping it front of mind for people who can remind Trump about this. And I think, Bill, you make a really good point that we do believe that Trump talks about Austin. We just want him to talk about Austin in front of a microphone, right? We want him to highlight Austin in these conversations around Iran and any kind of press briefing. And I think we know that that happens when there is a momentum and movement on everyday people about a subject. Trump is extremely involved in and keeping updated in the news. And so we want to keep Austin in the news. We want to keep him in front of Trump. And we want President Trump to then talk about Austin in one of the many platforms that he uses. And I think that's a direct ask that we have for friends and family and those who have been supporting our family over these long years.
Yeah, and the press plays a role in that too. I mean, it's not like hasn't spoken about him. Just because he hasn't raised the issue, if he's asked about it, he'll talk about it. So I think some of these specific channels that you guys have raised today, if he was getting questions on AF1 or on the tarmac or in front of the White House, hey, can you facilitate this meeting between the family and Assad? He'll think about it and he'll answer. I believe he'll answer. So we're getting a couple questions in the chat. One is asking, how effective are the SPIHA and FBI hostage groups at the moment? And look, God bless all these people who in their professional lives are focused on bringing Austin home. I will say about the hostage recovery fusion cell, there is a new team there, both top leadership and then also line representation. And among them are people that Deborah has worked with, known for many, many years. And I think she thinks they're very capable. And so I do think they're thinking about this and working on problems, but I would say if they've made a lot of progress in these areas that we discussed today, I don't know about it. So I would love to see more there from the hostage recovery fusion cell, and I would love to see like SPIHA did reach out. I know they did reach out to Secretary Rubio to facilitate a meeting. I think they can do what Jacob was saying. They can reach out to Israel to meet with their counterparts. I'd like to see more, but I'm not. I am pretty happy, I would say now, with who's in these positions, and that has not always been the case for me. I do feel like the people there want to make something happen, and I think they will.
Yeah. And in terms of effectiveness, we've seen certainly since its inception, and over the course of time that it has been active, SPIHA and the FBI hostage group have been instrumental in releasing American prisoners abroad. I think that they serve a specialized and fraught mandate. And for our family, the fact that some of these steps that we can see as civilians, we are family members. We're not foreign policy experts. We are not hostage negotiators. And we have been able to identify these paths of inquiry that have not yet been pursued. And so we would like to see that those engagements take place, these concrete actions take place. And SPIHA and the FBI hostage group are ideally suited. They're, as Bill pointed out, extremely well equipped with very competent and passionate people to execute on these tasks. So we know that they are effective when they are engaging directly with the problems that they face, the challenges that they face. And we would like them to engage in that way with these lines of inquiry that we've laid out today.
Yep. Thank you, Jacob. That's absolutely what we want. And we have a couple other things in the chat, but somebody's writing from Paris and saying she's or he's an ordinary person, and is there anything I can do? And I live in Paris. And I think, yes, I mean, what people can do is use their social to raise these issues and to monitor for when there's something about Austin and like it and retweet it. And they can participate in global events that we have had in the years past and probably will continue to have, like a run where you can be anywhere and do this run and post your time and post pictures of yourself running or wearing a t-shirt or that sort of thing. So those are things that people can do to keep it going. Often I'll wear a pin that says Free Austin. People will ask me, what is that? It's really remarkable, even though it's been a 14-year case, there's still a lot of people that just don't know about this guy and his story and what can be done. The person in Paris, this won't work about writing your congressman or asking that person to put pressure. But SPIHA that Jacob was just talking about is responsive to Congress. They have an oversight function there. And so if you ask your member of Congress to ask the administration, ask the State Department, ask SPIHA what's happening, that's always good. I would say in France, France is very good about bringing hostages home. Just brought two people home from Iran not long ago. So they know the way there. And they do things a little differently than we do, which I find, and they're very effective. So if I were the US government and I felt stymied, there's no need for them to feel that way. You guys just gave them a lot of things to do. But if I felt like I didn't know what to do next, I might talk to France and the EU, which just has a slightly different way of asking and a slightly different approach to things, right? Macron himself was very personally involved in leadership in bringing these two French citizens home from Iran. And I think that is something that was demonstrated as working. And I do think there's a lesson there for us.
Also, thank you so much for tuning in from Paris. That's so meaningful for us. That's huge. I would say that the detention of a journalist is not any particular nation's sole problem. Like the detention of journalists is of global concern. And so I'm really, really grateful to have you tuning in. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it is World Press Freedom Day. World.
I'll add on to that because I love how they said I'm just a normal person. So are we. We're just very normal people living very normal lives. But we just always appreciate people asking.
Yeah, I know Abby I hope you don't mind saying this, but for a while you guys lived in the UK, and you'd go do the Austin run in the UK in the
Yeah.
park there, and there get friends and that sort of thing. So it's really possible to help wherever you are.
Yeah. Just asking, even commenting on articles on Instagram. Oh, what about Austin Tice? Like anything, just getting his name out there. It's all about keeping his name out there. The news cycle is so short. Everyone has a 5-minute attention span. So just repeating and asking. And I love when people say, you know, oh, is there any new news? Even if they feel awkward asking, it's really nice.
It's pretty astonishing that there always is something new. There is a lot going on. We have this other person asking about what kind of engagement has there been with the British government specifically about Austin. I mean, I would say that I do know from time to time that your mom has met with British embassy officials here. I don't think there's an approach really to the foreign ministry. This story is followed very closely by the British press. The BBC, Josh Baker in particular, has been all over this. He lives in Beirut and sometimes in Syria a lot. Also Gareth Brown. So there's a lot of people from The Economist. There's a lot of people that are covering this in a kind of aggressive way that are not necessarily U.S. based press. And part of that is because I think they are able to get information from their own governments on this in a way that was very hard for many years for Deborah to get any kind of information. Now she has many binders of information, but we need to bring that to the fore and analyze it better and stuff. There's a question: how many American journalists are currently being held worldwide? So the news on that, there's news on that today, where an American was released from Kuwait, and there was news this month where Shelley Kettleston was released from. She was being held by an Iraqi group that was an Iranian proxy in Iraq. Austin is the only U.S. journalist being held now. During his time, there have been 2 or 3 others at a time. Some of them have come home, which is great. These last 2 have come home. I think it's just Austin now. Time for him to come home.
And worth noting, as we approach the 250th year of the United States, our 250th anniversary, he is the longest held U.S. journalist for that entire 250 years. It is not acceptable that he remains in detention. It is simply not acceptable.
Yes, I agree. And I would say that, and this is me, I don't know, I'm not saying this on behalf of the family, but I do feel that more and more I have been learning the degree to which our policy in and around the Middle East, including in Syria, has been so heavily reliant on our ally Israel. And I think I'm very happy that the United States government engaged in a significant way with Israel to try to bring out Israeli hostages, some of whom were also American and Thai and all kinds of other nationalities. But I think it's now time for Israel to realize that this is a significant foreign policy issue for us, the freedom of our longest held journalist hostage, and that it be a priority. It is a priority of our government. It should be a priority of the Israeli government. And, I do understand for years and years we didn't want to meet with Syria because we didn't want to legitimize the Assad regime, and that was something we were really being asked and held to that by Israel. There is no Assad regime now. Israel needs to step up here and help us locate our person. And I believe they have the best intelligence network in the region, and I believe they know a lot more than we are hearing about Austin. So I look forward this year to that problem being solved. And I look forward to the Israeli press helping to push on that in their own government, because they've done some pretty incredible work just recently. And I'm sure you all follow that. This has been a great one hour. I am grateful to the Tice family for joining us, and to all of you for tuning in. And thank you for your interest. Austin is on his way home. He's taking the long way to get here, but we're looking forward to seeing him very soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks, Naomi.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you everyone for joining. It really means a lot.
Thank you, Abby. So give our best to your mom. Everybody's hoping to see her soon. And thank you for filling in today. We appreciate it. Okay, best all.
Thank you.